Daniel Hayes stood at the kitchen window, watching Laura's car pull into the driveway. 14 years of marriage had taught him her rhythms, the way she always checked her reflection in the rearview mirror before getting out, how she'd pause to straighten her blouse. But lately there'd been new patterns, the lingering in the car, thumbing through her phone, the quick spray of perfume before entering the house, and that goddamn cigarette smell. He'd first noticed it 3 months ago. A Tuesday afternoon when he'd come home early with a migraine. The acrid scent had hit him the moment he opened the door. Unmistakable, foreign, wrong. Neither of them had ever smoked. Laura's father had died of lung cancer. She'd always been militant about avoiding cigarettes. "Hey," Laura said, breezing past him toward the stairs. "I'm going to shower before dinner." "Laura." He kept his voice neutral. "Do you smell that?" She froze mid-step, her hand gripping the banister. "Smell? What?" she asked, tension creeping into her voice. "Cigarette smoke," he answered simply. The panic that flashed across her face lasted maybe half a second, but Daniel's engineer's mind cataloged it like a data point. "Oh, that," she replied quickly, forcing casualness into her tone. "Mrs. Henry was outside smoking when I got home. Wind must have blown it through the windows." Mrs. Henry lived 3 houses down and had quit smoking 5 years ago after her husband's heart attack. Daniel knew because he'd helped them install an air purifier system. But he nodded, filed the lie away, and said nothing. That night, lying beside Laura as she scrolled through her phone with the screen angled away from him, Daniel's mind worked through the evidence. The cigarette smell appeared twice a week now. Tuesdays and Fridays. Laura's book club had moved to Tuesday afternoons 3 months ago. Her Friday yoga classes had started around the same time. He'd built his life on predictability and trust. Met Laura at Jim's barbecue 15 years ago. Her laugh had carried across the yard, genuine and unguarded. Within a year, they were married. She'd quit her retail job to manage the house while he climbed the ladder at Midwest Manufacturing. They'd been trying for kids for 3 years before accepting it wouldn't happen. He thought they'd grieved that loss together, grown, stronger. Now watching her guard her phone like a teenager, Daniel felt the foundation shifting beneath him. The changes had been accumulating like rust on steel, invisible until suddenly the structure was compromised. New passwords on her devices, receipts from stores he didn't recognize, the way she'd started shaving her legs twice a week instead of once. Small betrayals that meant nothing individually, but together painted an obvious picture. Tuesday came again. Daniel sat in his office, staring at his computer screen while his coworkers discussed a valve failure. At 2 p.m., his phone buzzed with Laura's text, "Running errands, home by 5." He excused himself, drove home, and parked one street over. Through the gap in his backyard fence, he watched a beaten Honda Civic pull into his driveway. The driver, young, maybe mid-20s, cigarette dangling from his lips, walked to his front door like he belonged there. Laura let him in immediately. Daniel sat in his car for 20 minutes, his hands steady on the wheel, his mind already planning. He wouldn't confront them. Not yet. His engineering training demanded data, evidence, proof. Tomorrow he'd research private investigators, document everything, build an airtight case. He drove back to work, deleted his browser history, after researching the best PIs in Illinois, and began preparing for war. Marcus Reeves didn't look like a private investigator. No trench coat, no cigarettes, no world-weary cynicism. He looked like an accountant, wire-rimmed glasses, polo shirt, khakis. Which made sense, Daniel thought, since his job was essentially auditing marriages. They met at a diner in Rockford, 30 miles from Daniel's house. Marcus spread his tablet on the Formica table between coffee cups. "Infidelity cases are straightforward," Marcus said, his voice clinical. photography, timestamps, pattern documentation. Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, but evidence of adultery affects asset division and alimony. What you're buying is leverage. I want everything, Daniel replied without hesitation. Every meeting, every location, every detail, Marcus quoted. His rate, $2,000 for 2 weeks of surveillance. Daniel paid in cash. The first report came 3 days later. Tuesday, 1:47 p.m. Laura meets subject at Motel 6 off Route 47. Subject identified as Tyler Morrison, 24, unemployed. 2 misdemeanor convictions for possession. Daniel stared at the photographs. Laura entering room 23, Tyler's hand on her lower back. The familiar intimacy of it made his stomach turn, but he maintained his routine. Kissed Laura goodbye each morning, asked about her day each evening, listened to her elaborate lies about traffic and long lines at Target. His performance was flawless while Marcus's camera captured the truth. Friday's report included audio. Marcus had managed to record a phone conversation, Laura's voice breathy and giggly. He won't be home until 6. We have hours. The contempt in her tone when she mentioned Daniel. He's so predictable, so boring, cut deeper than the affair itself. Daniel met with Patricia, a divorce attorney Marcus recommended. Her office overlooked the river, all glass and sharp angles. With this evidence, she gets nothing, Patricia said confidently, reviewing Marcus's files. But you need to protect your assets now. Move half the savings to a separate account, legally yours to do. Document all marital property. Change your beneficiaries. Daniel did it all within 48 hours. Laura never checked their accounts anyway. She just used the credit cards he paid off monthly. The second week brought darker revelations. Marcus recorded Laura outside the motel. "I'm not leaving him yet." "Why would I?" she said with calculating coldness. "He pays for everything. Tyler doesn't have a job. Once I figure out how to get the most in a divorce, then I'll file." Tyler's voice nervous. "What if he finds out?" "He won't," she answered dismissively. "Daniel's sweet, but he's not exactly observant. Besides, even if he did, what's he going to do? He's never raised his voice in 14 years. Marcus's final report was comprehensive. 23 documented meetings over the 2-week surveillance, period. But evidence suggested the affair had been ongoing for approximately 3 months. 12 hotel visits during that time. Hundreds of text messages Marcus had somehow obtained. Financial records showing Laura had opened a separate account, squirreling away cash withdrawals from their joint account. "She's planning her exit," Marcus observed during their final meeting. "But she's greedy, wants to milk you for a few more months." Daniel studied the surveillance photos. Tyler always smoked while waiting for Laura. American Spirits, the source of that smell that started everything. In one photo, they were kissing in Daniel's driveway, Tyler's cigarette still burning between his fingers. "There's something else," Marcus said carefully, sliding a USB drive across the table. "Last Tuesday, she brought him to your house, your bedroom, specifically." Daniel pocketed the drive without looking at it. He didn't need to see that. The violation was complete enough. That evening, Laura hummed while making dinner. Some pop. Songs she'd never listened to before Tyler. She'd grown careless, confident in her deception. Her phone sat unlocked on the counter. She'd stopped bothering with excuses for the cigarette smell. "You seem happy," Daniel observed casually. "Just a good day," she replied without even looking at him. "Book club was fun." He smiled, genuinely, this time, because Marcus had confirmed Tuesday's pattern. In 3 days, Laura would bring Tyler to their house again, and Daniel would be ready. Daniel's supervisor barely looked up when he mentioned the dizzy spell. "Take the afternoon, Hayes. You've got plenty of sick time." The drive home took 17 minutes. Daniel had timed it repeatedly over the past week. He'd leave at 1:30, arrive by 1:47, right when Marcus said they usually arrived. The Honda Civic was already in his driveway, parked at an angle like Tyler was planning a quick escape. 3 cigarette butts littered his front steps. American spirits. Daniel photographed them before entering his own home. The living room curtains were drawn, something Laura never did during the day. He could hear them before he saw them. Tyler's laugh mixing with Laura's voice. She sounded younger, lighter, like the woman he'd married 15 years ago. Daniel stepped into the doorway. Tyler saw him first, his cigarette freezing halfway to his lips. Laura was curled against him on Daniel's leather couch, the one they'd bought together for their 10th anniversary. Her hand was on Tyler's chest, her wedding ring catching the light. "Daniel," Laura said, her voice cracking, but only for a moment. Then something shifted in her expression, panic to calculation to something like relief. Tyler scrambled up, cigarette falling onto Daniel's carpet. Oh shit, man, I didn't, she said you were," he stammered. "Sit down, Tyler," Laura commanded, her voice steady now, controlled. She lit another cigarette with deliberate slowness. "Daniel, since you're here, we might as well talk." She introduced Tyler like they were at a cocktail party. 24, aspiring musician, they'd met at a coffee shop. 3 months ago, she volunteered this information with a casualness that felt rehearsed. "I've been unhappy," Laura continued, smoke curling between them. "You're a good man, Daniel, but you're boring. Every day is exactly the same. Work, dinner, TV, bed. I'm 39 years old and I feel like I'm already dead." Daniel said nothing, his silence seeming to embolden her. "Tyler makes me feel alive," she declared boldly. "The intimacy is incredible, something we haven't had in years." She paused, gauging his reaction. "I wasn't planning to tell you yet, but since you know, here's what's going to happen." She laid out her terms with the confidence of someone who'd rehearsed this speech. Tyler would continue coming over, twice a week, just like before. Daniel could either accept it or face the consequences. She'd claim emotional abuse, sexual inadequacy, years of neglect. She'd take half of everything, maybe more. His reputation at work, in their community, she'd destroy it all. "I've already talked to a lawyer," she lied smoothly. "Wives always win these battles. You can keep your dignity and your money if you just accept the situation. Tyler's not going anywhere." Tyler shifted uncomfortably. "Laura, maybe we should—" He started hesitantly. "Quiet!" she snapped without even looking at him. Her focus was entirely on Daniel, predatory and certain. "You're too weak to fight me, Daniel. Too worried about what people think. And you're definitely too smart to lose everything over pride." Daniel stood perfectly still, processing her speech like an equation. Every threat, every assumption about his character, every miscalculation of her position, it all confirmed what Marcus had documented. Laura had mistaken kindness for weakness, consistency for stupidity. "I need to think about your proposal," Daniel said finally, his voice perfectly level. Laura's smirk widened. "Take all the time you need," she replied smugly. "We'll be here." Daniel walked to the bedroom, his footsteps measured and calm. Behind him, he heard Tyler whisper urgently, "He's taking this way too well. Something's wrong." "He's in shock," Laura replied, but uncertainty colored her voice for the first time. In the bedroom, Daniel retrieved the manila folder from his dresser drawer, the one he'd prepared 3 days ago, knowing this moment would come. The weight of it felt satisfying in his hands. 2 weeks of Marcus's surveillance evidence, Patricia's business card clipped to the front. He paused at the mirror. The man looking back wasn't the boring husband Laura thought she'd married. This was someone who'd spent 2 weeks planning her complete destruction, someone who'd already won the war she didn't know they were fighting. Daniel smiled, the same smile he'd worn when he solved particularly complex problems at work. Then, he walked back to the living room, ready to show Laura exactly how badly she'd miscalculated everything. Daniel returned to the living room with the manila folder, his entire demeanor transformed. The shocked husband was gone, replaced by someone Laura had never met, calculating, prepared, dangerous. "I have a confession," Daniel announced, setting the folder on the coffee table. "I've known about your affair for 2 weeks." Laura's cigarette trembled slightly. "That's impossible," she protested. "You just found—" "3 months ago, you panicked when I mentioned smelling cigarette smoke," Daniel interrupted, his voice carrying the same tone he used when explaining engineering failures to junior staff. "Your lie about Mrs. Henry was particularly stupid. She quit smoking 5 years ago. I helped install her air purifier. That panic told me everything." He opened the folder, spreading photographs across the coffee table like playing cards. "The next day, I hired Marcus Reeves, private investigator, 20 years experience, very thorough." The first photo showed Laura entering the Motel 6. The second, her kissing Tyler in the parking lot. The third, fourth, fifth, a comprehensive timeline of betrayal, each image time-stamped and dated. Tyler's face went white. "You've been watching us?" he asked in horror. "For exactly 2 weeks," Daniel confirmed matter-of-factly. "Every meeting during that time documented. 23 encounters total. But Marcus found evidence the affair started 3 months ago. 12 hotel visits. Your criminal record, Tyler. 2 possessions, currently on probation. Your probation officer will be very interested in these photos of you smoking marijuana in your car." Laura grabbed the photos, her hands shaking now. Each image was perfectly clear, undeniable. Marcus had even captured them through the motel window, not explicit, but clear enough for court. "The audio recordings are particularly damning," Daniel continued, pulling out transcripts. "You discussing how you're using me for money, planning to milk me for a few more months, calling me boring and predictable while spending the money I earn." He quoted her words back verbatim. "He's sweet, but not exactly observant. What's he going to do? He's never raised his voice in 14 years. Well, my personal favorite, once I figure out how to get the most in a divorce, then I'll file." Laura's confident facade crumbled entirely. "You can't. Those recordings are illegal," she stammered desperately. "Illinois is a 2-party consent state for recordings," Daniel agreed calmly. "Unless they're in public spaces, motel parking lots, coffee shops, your conversations on our front porch, all perfectly legal. Patricia made sure of that." At the mention of an attorney, Laura went pale. Daniel produced more documents, bank statements, asset lists, Patricia's business card. "I've already moved our savings," Daniel stated coldly. "Legally, I'm allowed to protect marital assets when adultery is documented. The house is in my name only. You never wanted the responsibility, remember? Your car, also my name. Your credit cards, canceled as of this morning." Tyler stood abruptly. "I need to go," he said, panic rising. "Sit down," Daniel commanded, his voice carrying an authority neither of them had heard before. "You're on my property, in my house, my wife. You'll leave when I say you can leave." The profanity, so unlike Daniel, made them both flinch. Daniel produced the final documents. Divorce papers, already filed. Adultery clearly documented. Your threats about claiming abuse? They're recorded too. Extortion, actually. Patricia says that could be criminal charges if you pursue false allegations. Laura's breathing became ragged. "Daniel, please," she begged, her composure completely gone. "We can work this out. I'll end it with Tyler. We can go to counseling." "Counseling?" Daniel laughed, sharp and bitter. "You brought him to our bed, Laura." "Our bed. Marcus has video of you entering our house with him last Tuesday. You violated everything while I was at work earning the money you were stealing." He turned to Tyler with ice-cold fury. "You have 5 minutes to leave. If you contact my wife again, these photos go to your probation officer. If you come near my property, they go to the police. Clear?" Tyler didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed his jacket and practically ran for the door, not even looking back at Laura. "Tyler!" Laura called after him desperately. but the door was already slamming. Alone now, Laura's desperation peaked. "You can't just throw me out," she snarled, her mask finally completely off. "I have rights." "You have until 6 p.m. to pack what you can carry," Daniel replied with finality. "Anything you leave becomes property disposal. Your sister lives 40 minutes away. I suggest you call her." "This isn't over," Laura threatened, venom in her voice. "I'll fight you." "With what money? What lawyer? What evidence?" Daniel asked, gathering the photos back into the folder. "You calculated every angle except the one that mattered. You thought I was the same trusting fool you married. Instead, you taught me something valuable, how to solve problems permanently." As Laura stormed toward the bedroom to pack, Daniel called out calmly, "Oh, and Laura? I called your Tuesday book club myself last week. They haven't seen you in 3 months. I told them you'd found a new hobby." The sound of her sob was the last weakness she'd show him. The divorce finalized in 43 days, near record time for Illinois. Laura's attorney, a public defender turned divorce lawyer she'd found through legal aid, reviewed Daniel's evidence for exactly 1 meeting before advising immediate settlement. She got nothing. No alimony, no assets, no dignity. Daniel heard through. Marcus, who kept casual tabs as a professional courtesy, that Tyler had disappeared from the state entirely. Apparently, the threat to his probation combined with Laura's subsequent stalking had driven him to Colorado. Laura's own family, initially sympathetic, withdrew support after Daniel's attorney shared the recorded extortion threats. The house felt different now. Cleaner, somehow, though Daniel had hired professionals to deep clean everything twice. The cigarette smell was gone, along with the uncertainty that had plagued his final months of marriage. His evenings were his own, sometimes working on engineering projects, sometimes just enjoying the silence. 6 months later, his colleague Jennifer mentioned her sister was getting divorced. Caught her husband cheating. She's devastated, doesn't know what to do. Daniel pulled out Patricia's business card. "Tell her to document everything first," he advised. "Then call this attorney, and whatever she does, don't confront him until she's ready for war." "Speaking from experience?" Jennifer asked curiously. "From engineering," Daniel replied with quiet satisfaction. "You never start demolition until you've planned the complete teardown." The house he'd shared with Laura had become his alone, filled with the quiet satisfaction of problems solved and justice served. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't dramatic or passionate. It was methodical, thorough, and absolutely complete. Laura's last Facebook post before deleting her account had been telling, "Starting over is hard when you've lost everything." Daniel had commented with a single word. "Exactly." She'd blocked him immediately, but the message was already delivered. He'd won not through rage or violence, but through patience and preparation, the same traits she'd mocked as boring. Turns out, boring could be devastating when properly applied. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I've always been a man who notices details. It's not paranoia, it's training. 8 years as a military police officer teaches you to see what others miss. The slight bulge of a concealed weapon, the micro-expression that betrays a lie, the inconsistencies in a story told twice. I carried those skills with me when I left the service and started my private security consulting business. I built a career on noticing what others overlooked. Maybe that's why I never saw the betrayal coming from my own wife. Sometimes you're so busy scanning the horizon for threats that you miss the knife at your back. Lauren and I met 13 years ago, married 11 years ago. She was beautiful, ambitious, sharp as broken glass, a marketing coordinator at Grandstone Real Estate Development, with dreams of climbing higher. I admired that drive in her. She wasn't content to settle, and neither was I. We were equals, partners in a life we were building together. No children, mutual choice. We both wanted to focus on our careers, on building something stable before considering a family. Sometimes I wonder if that was the first sign, if having children would have anchored her in ways ambition never could. But that's hindsight talking, and hindsight is worse than useless. It just gives you new ways to torture yourself. We bought our house 5 years ago. Nothing extravagant, a modest 2-story in a quiet suburb. Good school district, low crime rate, decent neighbors who keep to themselves. I paid for most of it with my military benefits, put it primarily in my name. Lauren didn't mind. She was focused on advancement, not assets. When I make senior coordinator, she'd say, then we'll upgrade. Always looking ahead, my wife. Always seeing what could be instead of what was. The security system was my one indulgence. Top-of-the-line surveillance, cameras in every room, motion sensors, cloud backup with redundant systems. In our one-party consent state, it's perfectly legal. Lauren used to tease me about it. My overprotective soldier, she'd call me, rolling her eyes but smiling. She understood why I needed control over my environment. She knew about my deployments, the things I'd seen, the hypervigilance that never quite faded. She accepted it as part of the package. Part of me, or so I thought. 2 weeks before it happened, Lauren seemed distracted at dinner. She pushed her food around her plate, mentioned offhand that her new boss had big plans for the department. Richard Castellano, she said, looking up from her wine glass. He's restructuring everything. Says I might finally get that senior coordinator position. That's great, I told her, genuinely happy. You've earned it. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I should have noticed that, should have seen the subtle shift in her body language, the way she couldn't quite hold my gaze. All the signs were there. Little red flags I would have spotted immediately in anyone else. But this was Lauren, my wife, the one person I trusted completely. That Thursday evening, I was in my home office reviewing security footage for a client. Routine work, nothing urgent. Lauren had texted earlier saying she'd be home late. Another meeting with Castellano. I typed back, no problem. Love you, she didn't respond. I didn't think anything of it. Not yet. The sound of the front door unlocking pulled me from my work. I glanced at my watch, 8:17 p.m., earlier than I expected. I closed my laptop, thinking Lauren was home, thinking I'd make her some tea, ask about her day. I thought it was Lauren coming home early. I was wrong. Dead wrong. He walked into my living room like he owned the place. Tall, mid-50s, Italian suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Manicured nails, expensive watch, that unmistakable aura of entitlement that comes with power and money. He didn't knock. Didn't call out. Just walked in, sat on my couch, and crossed his legs like he'd been invited. My training kicked in immediately. My hand moved beneath the desk to the mounted Glock 19. A precaution, nothing more. I kept my voice level, controlled. Can I help you? Victor Hayes, he stated, not a question. He knew exactly who I was. I'm Richard Castellano, Lauren's boss. The name registered immediately. The man who'd been keeping her late at the office. The man with big plans for her future. He was sitting in my living room uninvited, and alarm bells were screaming in my head. How did you get in my house? I asked, my voice remaining calm, but my finger resting near the trigger guard now. Not on it, I'm not reckless, but close. Castellano's smile was thin, predatory. Your wife gave me a key, he replied smoothly. 5 words. 5 simple words that shattered the foundation of my marriage. Lauren had given this stranger, this man I'd never met, access to our home without telling me. The violation was so profound I couldn't immediately process it. Castellano didn't wait for me to catch up. He launched straight into what he called a man-to-man conversation. His voice was casual, matter-of-fact, as if what he was proposing wasn't monstrous. Here's the situation, Victor. I want to try your wife tonight, in your bed, and you're going to be reasonable about it, he explained, as if discussing a business deal. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't real. But it was. Castellano sat in my living room, explaining the arrangement as if it were a business transaction. Lauren would get the promotion, the career advancement, the life she deserved. I just needed to step aside, be cooperative. Lauren has already accepted the arrangement, he continued, examining his manicured fingernails. She understands how this works, how success happens. She's being smart about it. Get out of my house, I ordered, my voice ice now. MP voice, the one I used during interrogations. Castellano laughed, and made his threats. Connections with judges, politicians in his pocket, evidence that could be manufactured. He could make me disappear into the prison system while Lauren moved on with her life. How do you think it works for people like Lauren? He asked, leaning forward. Do you think talent is enough? Dedication? Hard work? He snorted. Those are just the entry fee. The real currency is compliance, adaptation, being willing to make arrangements. I asked clarifying questions, getting him to repeat everything. I needed to be sure, needed it all on record. My security cameras were recording every word, backing up to cloud storage he couldn't access. As he talked, my shock transformed into something colder, more focused. This wasn't just about Castellano. This was about Lauren, my wife. She had betrayed me, conspired with this predator, given him a key to our home. Are you listening to me, Hayes? Castellano demanded, standing and moving closer, his body language shifting from arrogant to aggressive. I'm telling you how this goes. Either you make this easy, or I make your life very, very difficult. Lauren knows the score. She's smarter than you. That's when I made my decision. I brought the gun up from under the desk, aiming center mass. No hesitation. No uncertainty. Castellano froze mid-step, his eyes widening. You have exactly 30 seconds to leave my house, I warned, my voice deadly calm. Every word you've said is being recorded. Every threat, every admission of attempted coercion. It's all backed up to servers you can't touch. Castellano's face transformed, shock to fury in an instant. He realized he'd been trapped, cornered by his own arrogance. You son of a bitch! He snarled. He lunged forward, throwing a sloppy kick aimed at my head. Old instincts took over. I shifted back, absorbing the momentum. 3 shots, center mass. Textbook defensive shooting. Castellano collapsed, blood spreading across the expensive suit, staining my living room carpet. His eyes were wide with disbelief, then vacant. I set the gun down carefully on the desk, picked up my phone, and made 3 calls in sequence. First, 911. I need to report a shooting. Home invasion. The intruder is down. I'm the homeowner, I stated calmly. Second, my lawyer. Mark, it's Victor Hayes. There's been an incident at my home. I need you here immediately, I explained. The third call I almost made was to Lauren. I had the phone in my hand, her contact pulled up. But something stopped me. A cold certainty that this wasn't a misunderstanding, that Lauren was complicit. That the woman I married had conspired to have another man threaten me in my own home. I put the phone down and waited for the police. For Lauren, for whatever came next. The hardest call I made wasn't to 911 or my lawyer. It was waiting for Lauren to walk through that door and see what her ambition had cost. I sat at my dining room table, an island of stillness in a storm of activity. Police officers photographed the body. Crime scene techs collected evidence. My lawyer, Mark Donovan, stood behind me, a reassuring presence as Detective James Morris reviewed the security footage on my phone. I knew Morris from my MP days. We'd worked adjacent cases, respected each other's methods. He'd arrived 20 minutes after the first officers, taking over the scene with quiet authority. When the video ended, Morris whistled low. Open and shut self-defense, Vic. You articulated the threat, gave commands, only fired when attacked, he observed, glancing at the bloodstain on my carpet. Clean shooting. Textbook. My training had saved me. The body cam footage from the first officers showed me calm, weapon secured, hands visible, cooperating fully. I'd done everything right. The system was working as it should. I was the victim here, the innocent party. Then headlights swept across the living room windows. Car doors slammed. Lauren was home. I watched through the front window as she parked in the driveway, noticed the police cars, frowned in confusion. She walked quickly to the front door, entered her own crime scene, and froze. Her eyes registered everything in sequence, the body bag being zipped, the blood being cleaned, the detectives, the techs, her husband sitting calmly at the table. She went white. Victor? What? Oh my God, is that? She stammered. Richard Castellano, I stated evenly. Your boss. The man you gave a key to. I watched her face as understanding dawned. The shock wasn't at finding a dead body in her living room. The shock was realizing the plan had failed catastrophically, that Castellano hadn't succeeded in threatening me into compliance, that her betrayal was exposed. She started crying, moving toward me with outstretched hands. "Victor, you don't understand. It wasn't what you—" she pleaded. Detective Morris interrupted, voice professional but firm. "Mrs. Hayes, I need to ask you some questions. Did you know Richard Castellano was coming to your home tonight?" No, I mean, he said he wanted to talk to Victor, but—" she faltered. "Did you provide Mr. Castellano with a key to this residence?" Morris pressed. Her eyes darted from Morris to me, back to Morris. "Yes, but—" she admitted reluctantly. "Did Mr. Castellano tell you the purpose of his visit?" He continued. "He said he just wanted to talk," she whispered, looking at me desperately. "Victor, please!" "There's video, Lauren," I interrupted quietly. "Everything he said." "Your involvement." The color drained from her face. She swayed slightly, grabbing the back of a chair for support. "I need a lawyer," she murmured. The next few hours blurred together. Lauren was questioned separately. Her phone was seized, revealing text messages with Castellano that confirmed the arrangement. My lawyer explained the situation in blunt terms. I was clear, but Lauren was in serious legal trouble. Accessory to attempted sexual coercion, conspiracy to commit blackmail, possibly more charges depending on what investigators found. I watched my wife being read her rights in our living room. She kept looking at me, eyes pleading for understanding, for mercy, for some connection. I felt nothing. No anger anymore. No betrayal. Just cold clarity. She'd made her choice. She chose ambition over me, over our marriage, over basic human decency. The woman I married wouldn't have done this. This stranger wearing Lauren's face did. The police finally cleared out around 3 a.m. The body was gone. The evidence collected. Statements taken. Preliminary reports filed. I sat alone in my living room, now a crime scene. I could still smell the blood, the gun smoke. My ears were still ringing from the shots, but my hands were steady. My breathing was calm. I had survived. That's what mattered. I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. The real nightmare was just beginning, not from criminals or police, but from the court of public opinion. The story broke within 48 hours. Wife conspires with boss to coerce husband. Deadly confrontation follows. Local news at first, then picked up by national outlets hungry for salacious content. My home became a stage, besieged by reporters with cameras and microphones. My security system, the same one that had saved my life, now captured journalists trampling my lawn, news vans blocking my driveway. I didn't leave the house for a week, except for police interviews and meetings with my lawyer. The thought of facing those cameras, those questions, made me physically ill. Not out of guilt, I knew I'd acted in self-defense, but from the violation. My private trauma had become public entertainment. Meanwhile, the investigation expanded like a cancer. Detectives seized Lauren's work computer, her emails, her phone records. What they found painted a damning picture. This wasn't sudden manipulation. Lauren had been having an emotional affair with Castellano for 6 months. He'd been grooming her, making promises of advancement, gradually escalating to the sexual arrangement, but the texts showed Lauren was willing, eager even. She wrote about finally getting what I deserve, and Victor will understand eventually. My lawyer showed me these messages in his office, my wife's betrayal rendered in clinical digital text. She'd been lying to me for half a year. Every late meeting was time spent with Castellano. Every networking event was another step in their plan. The night I killed Castellano wasn't the beginning. It was the culmination. I went through the motions, talking to detectives, meeting with lawyers, reviewing evidence, but I felt disconnected, like I was watching someone else's life unravel. My therapist, Dr. Coleman, mandated after the shooting, asked if I felt guilty about killing Castellano. No, I answered honestly. I feel guilty that I didn't see this coming, that I trusted her. The DA's office officially cleared me 2 weeks after the shooting. Justifiable homicide in self-defense. No charges filed. I had acted legally, appropriately, within my rights as a homeowner facing an intruder and direct threats. But Lauren was indicted, accessory to attempted sexual coercion. conspiracy to commit blackmail, providing false information to police. She initially claimed she didn't know Castellano was coming to the house. Her lawyer pushed for a plea deal. The evidence was overwhelming. Castellano's connections turned out to be mostly fiction. He knew some local business people, played golf with a city councilman, donated to political campaigns. Nothing that could have actually manufactured evidence or sent me to prison. It was all bluster, empty threats to force compliance, but Lauren had believed him. She'd believed the promises enough to betray our marriage. I filed for divorce before her arraignment. Mark told me it would be straightforward: adultery, conspiracy, criminal charges. Lauren would get nothing. The house was in my name, purchased before marriage with my military benefits. Our joint accounts would be split, but Lauren's legal fees would consume most of her share. She'd also been fired from Grandstone Real Estate, blacklisted in the industry. The woman who wanted to be senior coordinator couldn't even get an interview. Her ambition had cost her everything. I signed the divorce papers in Mark's office on a Tuesday morning. My hand didn't shake. My signature was clear and steady. 11 years of marriage ended in a pen stroke. I was done. She asked to see me one last time before her plea hearing. Against my lawyer's advice, I agreed. I needed to understand, needed to know if the woman I married was ever real. The courthouse conference room was sterile and cold. 2 lawyers present, recording devices running, a bailiff by the door. No chances taken. No private moments allowed. Lauren sat across from me, hands folded on the table. She looked different, thinner, older, broken. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, no makeup or jewelry. The Lauren I knew spent an hour each morning on her appearance. This version had surrendered that vanity. She'd accepted the plea deal: 2 years probation, 500 hours community service, mandatory counseling. No prison time, but a permanent criminal record. She'd be a convicted felon. The job she'd sacrificed everything for was now permanently beyond her reach. "Thank you for seeing me," she whispered, voice barely above a whisper. I said nothing. Waited. "I know you won't believe this, but he manipulated me," she began, eyes fixed on the table. "Castellano made me think this arrangement was normal in our industry. That powerful men always get what they want. That it was just how things worked. Did you give him a key to our home?" I asked pointedly. She flinched. "Yes," she admitted. "Did you know he was coming to threaten me?" I pressed. "He said he just wanted to talk," she protested weakly. "Talk about what, Lauren?" I interrupted, my voice remaining steady but ice cold. "What did you think he was going to say when he came to our home uninvited?" She had no answer. Her eyes filled with tears, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction in her distress, no anger at her excuses. Just empty, clinical observation. "You're still blaming him," I observed. "Still framing yourself as a victim of manipulation rather than an active conspirator. It wasn't supposed to happen like that." She burst out. "He wasn't supposed to threaten you. He just said he'd talk to you, explain the situation, make you understand." "Understand what? That my wife was trading intimacy for a promotion?" I asked coldly. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. "You don't understand." "I wanted more, Victor. I was tired of being just a coordinator while my college friends became VPs and directors. I wanted the corner office, the big salary, the respect. Castellano offered me everything. If I'd just be smart about it," she explained desperately. "And betraying your husband was being smart about it?" I challenged. "I convinced myself it wasn't really betrayal," she whispered, eyes down. "I told myself it was just business, just how the world works, that you'd understand eventually." The final question rose in me, the one that had haunted me for weeks. "Did you ever love me?" Her hesitation answered everything. She inhaled, exhaled, looked up finally. "I did once," she admitted. "But I changed. I wanted things you couldn't give me: wealth, status, power." I looked at our modest home and comfortable life and felt trapped. Castellano offered an escape. I stood to leave. The truth was worse than I'd imagined. Not just betrayal, dismissal. 11 years together, and she'd outgrown me like an old coat. Lauren grabbed my arm, desperate now. "Victor, please. Try to understand. I made a terrible mistake." "I'll do anything," she begged. I pulled away. "I do understand, Lauren," I replied coldly. "That's the problem. I understand exactly who you are now, and I understand that I married a stranger. I walked out without looking back. The divorce was finalized 3 days later. I kept the house, most assets, my dignity. Lauren left with her legal fees, her criminal record, and the ruins of her reputation. The judge's gavel came down, and just like that, 11 years of marriage ended. I walked out of that courtroom a free man. It would take longer to feel like one. 2 years have passed since I shot Richard Castellano in my living room. 2 years since I discovered my wife's betrayal. 2 years of rebuilding a life I thought was stable. My security consulting business is busier than ever. The case made me something of a legend in certain circles, the consultant who saw danger coming and prepared for it. I've tripled my client list, upgraded my home security system, though it's more symbolic than necessary. The original system saved my life. I don't date much. The few times I've tried, I've found myself watching for signs of deception, testing motivations, looking for hidden agendas. My therapist says it's normal, that trust takes time to rebuild. I'm not sure it ever will. The betrayal cut deeper than the physical danger. Lauren's willingness to sacrifice me for career advancement showed me how little our marriage actually meant. Through mutual acquaintances, I hear about Lauren occasionally. She moved to Nevada, working retail under her mother's maiden name. The criminal record makes professional work nearly impossible. The news coverage made her name toxic in our industry. She's trying to escape her past, build something new from nothing. I don't feel satisfaction hearing this. Just a dull, distant ache for the person she used to be or the person I thought she was. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks about me, about what she threw away. I wonder if the corner office she coveted seems worth it now, standing behind a register in a desert town where nobody knows her name. Castellano's family sued me in civil court. Wrongful death. The case was dismissed within minutes when my lawyer presented the security footage. The judge called it the most clear-cut case of self-defense he'd seen in 30 years. The family's lawyer apologized for wasting my time. Castellano's widow remarried within a year. His children don't speak his name. He left no legacy except as a cautionary tale of what happens when power corrupts absolutely. My life now is quiet, structured, solitary. I wake at 5 a.m., work out, review security protocols for clients, go to bed early. I've made peace with what happened. People sometimes ask if I regret shooting Castellano, if there was another way. My answer never changes. He broke into my home. He threatened to destroy my life. He attacked me. I defended myself. The law agreed. And I sleep just fine at night. The moral complexity isn't lost on me. I took a human life. But it was a life bent on destruction, on coercion, on abuse of power. Castellano would have ruined others if he'd lived. Lauren would have continued believing that betrayal was just how the world works. The tragedy forced a reckoning that needed to happen. I don't hate Lauren anymore. Hate requires energy, investment, caring. I feel nothing when I think of her now. She's a stranger who briefly wore the face of someone I loved. The real Lauren, the woman I married, probably never existed. She was a construct, a performance, a mask worn until ambition made it inconvenient. I've learned that some predators wear expensive suits and make promises of advancement. And some betrayals come from the person sleeping beside you, the one you trusted most. My security system saved my life, but it was my training, my instinct, my refusal to be a victim that let me survive. The bloodstains are gone from my living room, professionally cleaned. New carpet, new furniture. But I still see it sometimes, the moment when everything changed. I'm not the same man I was 2 years ago. That man trusted too easily, loved too blindly, believed that marriage meant something permanent. This man knows better. This man survives. I defended myself. The law agreed. And some nights, when I'm alone in this house that's become both fortress and prison, I wonder if I saved my life only to lose it anyway. But then morning comes, the sun rises, and I'm still here, still standing, still free. That has to be enough. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.